The draft from the heavy kitchen doors hit Alina Vance's shoulders every time a waiter hurried past with a tray of cleared plates. Table 29. That was where they had put her. Not at the dais, draped in gold satin where the board of directors sat. Not even at the family table near the front, where her grandchildren were currently laughing under the crystal chandeliers. Alina, the woman who had kneaded the dough for the very first loaf of bread sold by Vance Bakeries 50 years ago, was seated next to the emergency exit and the coffee station. She looked down at her hands, gnarled by arthritis and decades of hard work, resting on the polyester tablecloth. Her daughter-in-law Linda had orchestrated this with a surgeon's precision. "It's better for you back there, Mom," Linda had said, her voice dripping with faux concern. "It's quieter, you won't be overwhelmed by the lights. Plus, we need the front tables for the investors from New York. You understand, don't you? We can't have you looking tired." Alina hadn't argued. She had simply put on her best navy dress, pinned her silver hair up, and walked to the back, swallowing the lump of humiliation that felt like broken glass in her throat. On the stage, the spotlight found her son, Robert. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, the very image of a CEO raising a glass of sparkling cider. "Tonight we celebrate half a century of tradition," Robert announced, his voice booming through the speakers. "My father, the late Thomas Vance, had a vision. He built this empire from a single oven." Alina gripped her water glass. Thomas had the vision, yes, but Alina had the recipes. She had the discipline. She had worked double shifts at the hospital to buy that first industrial mixer. But tonight, she was a footnote in small print, hidden behind the clatter of silverware. She watched Robert smile at Linda, who beamed like a queen beside him. They had successfully erased her from the narrative of her own life. Alina felt a tear prick her eye, hot and angry, but she refused to let it fall. She would sit here, drink her water, and leave with her dignity intact, even if her heart was breaking. Then the empty chair beside her scraped against the floor. Alina didn't look up immediately, assuming it was a staff member taking a break. But then a scent hit her, cedarwood and old leather, a smell so distinct it made the breath catch in her lungs. A man sat down. He was dressed in a tuxedo that cost more than Robert's car, tailored to perfection. He had a shock of white hair and a face lined with the kind of character that only comes from a life fully lived. He placed a heavy cane with a silver handle on the table and signaled a passing waiter. "A bottle of the 82 Cabernet," he ordered, his voice a low rumble that vibrated in the air. "And 2 glasses, the clean ones." Alina turned slowly. The man was looking at the stage, his expression unreadable, but as the waiter scurried away, he turned his blue eyes toward her. "They put the most important person in the room next to the kitchen," he said softly. "I suppose that's poetic in a tragic sort of way. You always did run the kitchen, Ellie." Alina's heart hammered against her ribs. "Julian," she whispered. He smiled, and suddenly the 50 years between them evaporated. Julian Thorne, the boy who had delivered flour to her father's shop in the summer of 1974. The boy who had read poetry to her behind the loading dock while the bread rose. "Hello, Ellie," he said. "It's been a lifetime." You shouldn't be back here," she stammered, looking toward the front where Linda was now clapping politely. "This is the overflow section. The VIPs are up front." Julian laughed, a dry, confident sound. "I sit where I please, and tonight I'm sitting with the only person in this hall who knows the difference between yeast and ambition." The waiter returned with the wine. Julian poured a glass for her, his hand steady. "I heard about Thomas. I'm sorry, but looking at where your son has seated you, I'm starting to think the wrong people are running this ship." Alina took the glass, her hand trembling slightly. "Robert is doing his best. It's just business. Linda says the investors need to see a modern face." "Modern?" Julian scoffed, taking a sip. "Does modern mean discarding the foundation?" He leaned in closer. "I've been watching you for the last hour, Ellie. You hold your head high, but I know that look. You feel invisible." "I am invisible," she confessed, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "I signed the controlling shares over to Robert 5 years ago when Thomas got sick. I thought I was securing the family's future. Instead, I wrote myself out of the family." Julian's eyes darkened. "Invisible is a dangerous thing to call a woman who built the castle." At the front of the room, the atmosphere shifted. Robert was back at the microphone looking nervous. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored tonight to be joined by a representative from Helios Holdings. Their investment will take Vance Bakeries global. We were told the chairman himself might make an appearance, though he is known for being reclusive. Robert scanned the room, sweating under the lights. Is Mr. Thorne in the audience? Alina dropped her fork. It clattered loudly onto her plate. She stared at the man beside her. Helios Holdings, Julian, you own Helios. Julian winked, a spark of the mischievous boy she once knew returning. I did well in imports, Ellie. Flour turned into shipping, shipping turned into equity. I bought the debt on this company 3 weeks ago. Robert and Linda were frantic now, whispering to their assistants. The murmurs in the crowd grew. People were craning their necks. Finally, a flustered assistant pointed toward the back of the room, toward the kitchen doors, toward table 29. Robert's face went pale. Linda looked like she had swallowed a lemon. They hurried off the stage and began a power walk through the tables, weaving through the guests, their smiles plastered on but their eyes filled with panic. They reached the back table, breathless. Sir, Robert said, slightly out of breath, ignoring his mother completely. Mr. Thorne, we had no idea you were back here. There must be a terrible mistake with the seating chart. Please come to the front. We have a place of honor for you. Julian didn't stand. He didn't even look at Robert. He just swirled his wine and looked at Alina. I'm quite comfortable, thank you. The company is better back here. Linda stepped forward, her voice high and tight. Mr. Thorne, surely you're joking. This is where we put the overflow. It's drafty. The lighting is poor. It's not suitable for a man of your stature. She glanced at Alina with a look that said, do something. Mom, tell him he should go to the front. Alina looked at her daughter-in-law. She saw the fear behind the expensive makeup. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the urge to smooth things over. She took a sip of the wine Julian had poured. It was rich, complex, and bold. Actually, Linda, Alina said, her voice clear and steady, Julian is an old friend. He seems perfectly happy right here. Robert's jaw dropped. You know him? Julian finally turned his gaze to the younger man. It was icy. Know her, young man? I delivered the flour for the bread you built the scala on. Your mother taught me how to tell when the dough was ready by the smell of the air. And you have put the architect of your fortune next to the garbage cans. The silence that radiated from their table was louder than the jazz band playing on stage. It was a misunderstanding, Robert stammered. Mom gets overwhelmed. She looks perfectly composed to me, Julian countered. In fact, she looks like the only person here with a spine. He reached into his tuxedo jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. He tossed it onto the table between the salt shaker and the bread basket. That is the acquisition proposal you've been begging my firm for. The capital injection you need to keep the factories open next month. Robert reached for it, his hands shaking. Thank you, Mr. Thorne, you won't regret this. Don't touch it, Julian snapped. Robert froze. That offer was contingent on my assessment of the company's leadership and values. I don't invest in products, Robert, I invest in people. And frankly, I find your values bankrupt. Linda gasped. You can't be serious. Because of a seating chart? Because of respect? Julian's voice rose, turning heads at the nearby tables. You treat the woman who gave you everything as a liability. If you treat your own mother this way, how will you treat my employees, my customers? No, the deal is dead. Robert looked like he might faint. Please, you can't. The bank will foreclose in 30 days without this liquidity. We'll lose everything. The house, the brand. Alina watched her son crumble. She remembered him as a little boy, scraping his knee and running to her. She loved him despite his foolishness, despite his wife's cruelty. But she also knew that saving him now without a lesson would only destroy him later. Julian, Alina said softly. He turned to her immediately, his expression softening. Yes, Ellie, don't kill the deal, she said. Mom, Robert exhaled, relief flooding his face. Thank you, yes, listen to her. I wasn't finished, Alina said, holding up a hand. Robert snapped his mouth shut. She turned her body fully toward her son. Julian is right, you have lost your way. You care more about the packaging than the bread. You care more about the applause than the people. She looked at Julian. Is there a way to restructure the deal? Julian smiled, a slow, predatory smile directed at Robert. There is, I can buy the controlling interest directly. The capital flows in, the debt is cleared. But the CEO steps down to a junior consulting role, and the board appoints a new chairperson to oversee quality and culture. Who? Linda demanded, though her voice was a whisper. Who could you possibly appoint? Julian gestured to the woman in the navy dress. Alina Vance. Robert laughed nervously. Mom, she's retired, she's 72, she can't run a multinational corporation. I ran this family and this business before you learned to tie your shoes, Robert, Alina said, a fire lighting in her chest that she thought had gone out years ago. And I won't be doing the day-to-day spreadsheets. I'll be ensuring that no one employee or family member is ever treated like furniture again. Julian looked at Robert. Those are the terms. Take them or I walk out that door, and tomorrow morning the bank takes your keys. Robert looked at Linda. She was pale, staring at the diamonds on her wrist as if calculating their pawn value. She gave a microscopic nod. Robert slumped. Okay, we accept. Good, Julian said. He stood up and offered his arm to Alina. Now, Madam Chairperson, I believe this table is drafty. Would you care to join me for dinner? I know a small Italian place on 4th Street. It's quiet, the lighting is good, and they actually respect the person who makes the food. Alina stood. Her knees didn't hurt, her back was straight. She picked up her purse. I would love that, Julian. Mom, you're leaving? Robert asked, bewildered. The gala, the speech. You can give the speech, Robert, Alina said. Tell them about your father's vision. I'm going to go enjoy my life. She took Julian's arm. As they walked away from the back corner, weaving through the tables toward the exit, the room fell silent. People watched the silver-haired woman and the distinguished man in the tuxedo. They didn't look like an old woman and her friend. They looked like royalty leaving a court that no longer deserved them. Outside, the night air was crisp and smelled of rain on asphalt, a Chicago autumn. The valet brought Julian's car around, a sleek vintage Jaguar. You really own the company? Alina asked as he held the door for her. As of tomorrow morning, we own the company, Julian corrected. He looked at her, his blue eyes searching hers under the streetlights. I never married Ellie. I spent 40 years building a fortune trying to impress a girl who smelled like yeast and vanilla. I was too late back then. I didn't want to be too late tonight. Alina felt a blush rise to her cheeks, feeling 18 again. You were never too late, Julian. Life just happened. Well, he said, walking around to the driver's side. Life is happening now. Let's not waste the next 20 years. They drove off, leaving the gala, the gold satin, and the cold ambition of the Vance empire in the rearview mirror. 3 days later, the staff at Vance Bakeries headquarters were summoned to the main atrium. Rumors were flying about a takeover, about bankruptcy. Robert stood off to the side, looking humbled, wearing a simple suit stripped of his arrogance. Linda wasn't there. She had decided to take a long vacation in Florida. The elevator doors opened. Alina walked out. She wasn't wearing the dowdy knits she usually wore to Sunday dinner. She wore a sharp cream blazer and a silk scarf. Beside her was Julian Thorne, leaning on his cane, looking like a guardian lion. Alina approached the podium. She adjusted the microphone. She looked out at the sea of faces, secretaries, bakers, truck drivers, accountants. People she had known for decades, people Robert had stopped greeting by name. Good morning, Alina said. Her voice didn't shake. My name is Alina Vance. For a long time I was told that my time had passed, that I belonged in the background, but I learned something recently. She glanced at Robert, then at Julian, who gave her a nod of encouragement. Respect is not something you beg for. It is something you command by knowing your own worth. She paused. There will be changes here. We are going back to the recipes that matter, and we are going to treat every person in this building as if they are sitting at the head table. Because if you aren't building a table where everyone can eat, you aren't building a family. You're just building a cage. Applause started slowly from the back of the room, the drivers, the janitors. Then it swelled, rolling forward until the executives in the front row were clapping too. Alina smiled. It wasn't the polite smile of a grandmother at a wedding. It was the smile of a matriarch who had returned home. That evening, Alina sat on her porch. The for sale sign that Robert had suggested she put up on her house was gone, broken into splinters and thrown in the trash. Julian sat in the rocking chair beside her, 2 glasses of iced tea sweating on the table between them. "You were good today," Julian said. "I was terrified," she admitted. "That's how you know it matters." Alina looked out at the garden she had planted with Thomas 40 years ago. It was overgrown, but the bones were good, just like her life. "Thank you, Julian, for seeing me." He reached out and covered her hand with his. His skin was warm, his grip solid. "I always saw you, Ellie. The world just got in the way for a while." Her phone buzzed on the table. It was a text from Robert. "Mom, I'm sorry. Can I come over tomorrow? I want to learn how to make the sourdough starter, the real way." Alina read it and let out a long breath. She didn't type back immediately. She let the silence stretch, comfortable and sweet. She picked up her iced tea. "Is everything all right?" Julian asked. "Yes," Alina said, placing the phone face down. "It's perfect, but he can wait. Tonight I think I'd like to hear some of that poetry you used to read." Julian smiled, leaning back and reciting lines from memory, his voice blending with the chirping of the crickets. Alina closed her eyes, feeling the cool breeze on her face. She wasn't in the last row anymore. She was exactly where she was meant to be.